as we continue talking Final Four here on Send It In. Yesterday we talked about Duke and Houston, and we talked about South Carolina and Texas on the women's side. Today, Florida, Auburn, and UCLA and UConn. So let's start with this Florida-Auburn game because it really is interesting. And Chase was bringing up a lot of great points. And obviously the perception around both of these teams right now is way different than it was a month and a half ago. Again, Auburn, middle of SEC play, they were the clear-cut team. They had like 13 quad one wins. The next closest team had 8. They were beating everybody. They looked like a great team. Obviously, the team to beat in college basketball. Haven't quite looked like the same team. And they lost 3 of their last 4 games going into the NCAA tournament. No team has ever won the national title, losing 3 of their last 4 games. And now they go up against the Florida team, who is obviously in their conference, a team that beat them without one of their better players in Elijah Martin. And after winning the SEC tournament, being the number 1 overall seed, the way that they won these games against UConn and Texas Tech, Walter Clayton looks like the guy that you want to have in this tournament in a close game. If you need a clutch shot, you go to number 1 for the Gators. They're 2.5-point favorites. I've talked about this the last couple days. I think this is a great game to bet live. You've seen it already this tournament and how both of these teams really can go on some runs throughout the game, right? They could be trailing in the first half, they could be trailing in the second half, and then they just flip on another gear. Florida goes on like a 17-3 run to close out the game. Auburn goes on a 17-0 run against Michigan in the second half to lead them to victory in that one as well. I think one of these teams at one point in this game is going to be up double digits. And when that happens, I think you bet the other side. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I still like Florida in the game. If I had to bet them, I probably would take the Gators on the money line. I just think the way that these two teams are trending right now, Auburn just doesn't feel like the same team to me at this point. And Broome, even though he is going to play, certainly you got to be a little concerned about the injuries that he suffered. And then on the Florida side, even though they are probably fortunate to get here, they should have lost to UConn, probably, certainly should have lost to Texas Tech. If a game's close, how can you not trust Florida to find a way to win it with Walter Clayton, right? I mean, he's the guy that's been hitting big shot after big shot in this tournament. So if I had to bet a side in this game, would probably lean towards the Florida Gators. But again, I think the way to just bet it, you guys, is to just bet the live spread when either of these teams is up double digits. A player prop that I would look at is Miles Kelly over 12.5 points for Auburn at plus 100. So Kelly has really struggled in his last couple games. In the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16 out in Atlanta, he was a combined 4 for 19 from the field, 2 for 13 from three-point range, and just a combined 13 points. So he was a combined 13 points in his last 2 games. He also only scored 8 in the round of 32 against Creighton. Yet here we are against Florida, a team that he dropped 22 points against in the regular season, and his prop is sitting at 12.5, and it's plus 100 to go over. Again, we've seen it this tournament. Florida has been susceptible to giving up some three-pointers, and if you have a guy on your team that's a good three-point shooter and he gets hot, he could have a big game, and that's Miles Kelly for Auburn. He's their best three-point shooter. That's what he's out on the floor to do. He's a 3-and-D guy, good defender, great three-point shooter. He's been a little bit off. I'll be willing to take the chance that he's going to be on. I'll even look at some alt lines like Miles Kelly, 20 or more points at plus 580. I think if there was a guy outside of Broome, outside of Pettiford, that could go off for a big game for Auburn, it would be Miles Kelly. That would be the guy that I would look at. As for the UConn and UCLA game on the women's side, Huskies favored by 8.5. The total is 135.5. I'm going to lay the 8.5 here with UConn. You got Corey Close, who's the head coach for UCLA, coaching in her first Final Four, going up against arguably the GOAT in Gino Auriemma, all right? So experience and just knowing how to handle and prepare your team for this stage. I mean, Gino just laps her and laps a lot of the coaches in women's college basketball. So I think that's a big advantage in the way that they're playing right now. Paige is healthy. She's playing unbelievable. She's dropped 30 or more points in her last 3 games. The player prop that I would look at, though, for UConn is going to be AZ Fudd over 11.5 points at minus 130. Shop around, you might get a better price on that over 11.5, but I think that AZ Fudd is the X factor in this game. She has struggled from the field in her last 2 games, but she still managed to score 10 points and 8 points. And that's shooting like 4 for 13, 2 for 13 from the field. So she's getting the shot attempts. If she just knocks down like 40, 50% of her shots, she's going to go over the 11.5 and score 12 or more. And you would figure UCLA is a very good defensive team. They're obviously going to key in on Paige Beckers and force somebody else to beat them. I think that could open up some opportunities for AZ Fudd. So I like her over 11.5